Great to see you, Kris. My name is Matt Sitter, CEO of AFN. As I have said many times before, change is where opportunity happens, and we believe the best way to take advantage of change is a network that is diverse in experience, expertise, and perspective. In short, your network is the answer. Our events bring together experts and insiders to our community to expand knowledge critical to them and their businesses. So today I'm really excited. We have Kris Speer with us. She's a good friend to AFN. She's managing director at Westwood, Wilshire, Silicon Valley executive search firm with a focus in life sciences and technology. In the past, Kris has given us a great view into executive recruiting, so how you build your team at an executive level. Today, we're going to shift our perspective a little bit towards what CEO hiring looks like and how that affects members of our community for their future opportunities. So this is great insider look. Kris, great to see you. And would you like to share a little bit about how you're thinking about the world of CEO hiring right now?
Yes, thanks, Matt. And it's always nice to be here and talk with you. So as managing director of the technology practice and the G&A practice at Westwood and Wilshire, I'm basically heading the search firms that do C-level down to VPs typically for growing companies. And the technology practice is an interesting one because technology gets into everything. There's no industry that's not a heavy user of technology right now. So our team gets pulled into all kinds of assignments. We have a CEO search going on at the moment for a clean tech company based out of Georgia. And we get this bird's eye view, if you will, into a lot of different companies doing very exciting things. So one of the things I do like to do in the practice is help the individual candidates on their own career path. So I really appreciate Matt making this information available. However I can help people with their own careers, I find that very rewarding. So here this morning to give you any insider views into this whole CEO search process that has been evolving, but not as quickly as I would say recruiting and search has evolved for some of the positions below the CEO. So it has a lot of tradition that is still left at the CEO level, but there are some evolutions. Okay.
Great.
So, how do you want me to that?
Well, there's a whole host of questions that I think that we could go down, and I think there's sensitivity when you're a current CEO looking for a new CEO gig. And so one of the questions I'd like to start with is, as a CEO who may already be involved in a job, how do you make it known that you're looking for opportunities?
Well, one of the things that the CEO is sitting in the birdseat for what's going on with the business. So there are various reasons, as you guys know, for why you want to transition. It could be that, typically the board is going to give you an indication when they feel like maybe a fresh leader is needed. But if you are at a company and you are making the decision to leave, that's a little bit different. As Matt said, the network is everything. You need to keep your network current with the firms that do the CEO searches or the firms in your industry. So there's the network of people at search firms. There are the network of people on the boards, and that's the network of investors that you may know. So I think, when you are thinking of making a change, it's a little bit different than, just putting open to opportunities on LinkedIn is what, people below you can do. And it's a little bit tougher for the CEO to do that. So therefore, I think it's imperative for CEOs to keep good relations with search firms. You don't know when the next opportunity may come your way, and you want to be a friend to the people who reach out to you when you're not looking, so that they come back to you when they are looking. So that's a big thing that I think you probably know, but you'll get approached a lot by search firms, hopefully, and make those friends. Even and especially with the more junior people who call you. When I was a senior associate at Korn Ferry, I would reach out on some of these very senior searches, and every conversation is logged. at these search firms. So one of the things you want to do is build a reputation as someone who is receptive. And even if you're not looking, you can give them an idea of what kind of opportunity you would be interested in. And that ideally goes in the notes. So the next time someone is looking through that and who was on that search who wasn't interested or for some reason wasn't a fit, they're going to go back through that and think about that.
As you're thinking about, so great that there's relationships at different levels that you want to have. Don't ignore the junior person that's calling you because that is getting logged out there. In terms of keeping a relationship fresh, how often should you be thinking about communicating with a search firm, even if you're not looking for it? Is it just great to do a regular check-in? How do you think about that?
No, the check-in, well, you see, the thing about search firms is that they're heads down on specific assignments. And I just want to take a little bit of a sidebar to explain how they're going to be deciding whether to reach out to you or not. It's all about the industry and it's about the size of the company and what's happening with that company. So as you know, when we get an assignment, there are certain criteria that we're looking for. We're looking for someone who's grown a company from X revenue to Y revenue, or someone who's in a specific niche industry, or someone who has the same business model that would be relevant to a company we want to, bring new leadership into. So for one thing, on your own LinkedIn profile, yes, we still use LinkedIn for CEO searches, put that kind of information in there. I mean, LinkedIn is basically the public phone book, if you will. It's the database, public database. So that don't think of it as where you necessarily look for a job, but you want to be found. So that's how you should put your information up there. But we're looking for people who have done specific things with their companies or have a track record of, let's say, inorganic growth for a firm, or just the opposite, organic growth for a firm, or has certain accomplishments that would make you an attractive candidate. One of the things that is interesting is that business performance is a really important aspect, but more and more, all of these people issues are really important. The culture, the type of environment that you can create. Have you built a company that's working remotely or not? I think there's a huge shift, you're all aware of, to building remote teams. And coming out of the tech industry, we're used to this more than other industries are. But having the experience of doing that, of working with remote workers or a team spread out, those are all things that are very helpful in today's CEO.
Okay, so LinkedIn still becomes critical, having the right sort of data points that are in there around it.
Right? If you're any kind of a search, the first thing people do is they look you up on LinkedIn. And at the CEO level, they're going to be looking at, your network as well. Who do you know in common, right? So that's a really important thing. But the number one driver is the industry, the size of the companies that you've been at, the accomplishments there, and just basically the business performance.
Okay. And so as, again, just looking for insight into how you're finding these candidates, basically you have your junior staff doing searches within LinkedIn saying like, all right, who are the candidates that match XYZ?
No, actually.
Okay. Yeah. I love being wrong. So.
All right. In the larger firms, the search firms are organized like a layer cake. You do have junior people. It's like a professional services firm, right? Consulting firm. You have the junior people who are, they have a separate research team, which basically does company research. It's not really doing anything on the candidate side. So the junior people pick over prior searches, people they already know, which is why you want to develop those relationships. And they are the people who will pick over LinkedIn or some sort of information like which companies are applicable, which companies, research can tell them which companies IPO'd last year or which companies, grew from this to this in this sector. Anyway, so in the larger firms, a junior person typically reaches out and then hands you off to a partner. And then the partner may have a video interview with you, and then you get presented. At Westwood and Wilshire, I mean, I did that for 6 years at Korn Ferry, but I think there's a better way. So we're reorganize things a little bit differently. And some of the boutiques will operate more like we do, which is only a senior recruiter is really going to reach out to you. The research may generate names, but a senior person is going to reach out to you, particularly on a CEO search, and engage you and talk to you about the opportunity. And at that point, if it looks like there's a potential and you might be interested, then a whole significant vetting process begins. So there's a lot of things that go into a CEO search that are much, much more robust than other levels of searches below you. For one thing, I think the biggest change has been the use of assessments and doing a more 360 kind of view of each candidate. So as I alluded to earlier, business performance, okay, that's the number one thing to put in there. That's what the board's looking for. That's what the investors are looking for. That speaks volumes. But between candidates who all make the basic criteria, then it gets into more nuanced selection. And one of the new tools, in quotes, is the use of assessments and to augment their interviewing process. To give you an example, one of our recent placements was to replace the founder, CEO, and CTO of a company that was backed by a private equity firm. Now, they already had, it's an unusual process how this company had brought in a new CEO, but I'm going to use our replacement of the founder to show you the process that they used for that, which is the investment firm has a person that works with each company that's hiring at this significant level, and they do assessments. In this case, it was the Hogan assessment for the candidates, the top candidates, the leading candidates, to get insights into them, as well as the existing CEO or management team. So the key players, that what they're doing is looking for the right match, some insights into how people might operate together. They're just trying to get forward vision into making the right choice. We all know that once you don't really know somebody until you work with them, right? I mean, once you're all in the same management team and you're working together, that's where you really understand how people operate. But how can we close that gap between how someone interviews and comes across and what we learn about them through references with actual performance? And that's what the assessments are trying to open up. Now, in the case where we worked with the investor firm on this CEO, CTO replacement, there were some things for some of the candidates that the top candidate showed something like, well, I have a question about blah, blah, blah. And, you know, that didn't seem to be a valid concern. So I just want to assure people that the assessments are not something to be afraid of, because they're not the final word by any means. And everybody using an assessment knows that. They're just trying to get some insight into your working style and your personality a little bit more to, like I say, just buy some assurance that what they're picking up on is legitimate. That's it. So I think everybody should expect assessments coming forward on a CEO search. And if they're not there, then that's a standard process, but I think assessments are becoming quite standard now.
Okay. And is it, when you guys are looking at, does the search firm run the assessment process, or is it the hiring company that is running the assessment process?
It can be either. A lot of search firms now have kind of a consulting arm, and we do as well. We call it Excel People. That's a separate group that does a lot of consulting on people issues into companies, and the consultants there are certified in several of the assessments. So we bring them in. They're not on the search team. They're an additional pool of people that we have. But they're, does their paycheck come from Westwood and Wilshire? Yes. But they're in a separate business entity that's more consulting in nature. So they're not so tied to any particular candidate. They're very agnostic about that. They're just trying to get a pure, assessment on people.
Okay.
But I will say that the private equity firm we were working with then, they had already had their internal consultant do the Hogan on their existing team. And so they had that person review the candidates who came forward on the search we did, because that person already knew the team had done the Hogan for the others. So there's a lot of consistency, and it made a lot of sense. So that's the direction they went right then. I think a lot of private equity firms are doing this more and more.
Okay. And the folks who are actually looking at the results of the assessment, the recruiter, is it the
not
board
the
as well?
No, it's really not the recruiter. It's really
okay.
The client. I mean, we might get some feedback about it, but it's really more of the consultant on the assessment with the client. And then if there are any concerns that come out of that, like I say, we knew of some things that the consultant said, well, maybe this or that, or you should check out this and that. And they didn't. It was like, no, that doesn't seem to really be any indication of, that doesn't seem right. So they discarded something that, look, the consultant is a little bit, doesn't want to come out and say, they can't say, hire this person. They can just say, well, let's see, maybe the score on teamwork could be a little higher. Have you, checked out how well he works with teams or something like that, right? Or it's insights on that level. It's not how will this person deliver the goods on the business? It doesn't answer that question. It answers the question more like, how do you work with others? What is your propensity to decide things quickly versus be thoughtful? Things like that.
Okay. Boards are a complicated beast, and they bring a lot to the table in terms of how the organization is being managed. And I presume that often you're a customer in a CEO search. What does that relationship with the board look like? How are they engaging with you? Who on the board is actually the primary point of contact? How's that all work?
Well, as you know, it can be quite different given the circumstances. The CEO search we have going now, we are that is our customer, right? And so our search consultant, Annie Collins, is in touch with them all the time. It's as if, we're doing the search for them to find the next CEO. In this case, they have someone that has been in the company for a while, and it was sort of a mutual decision that where they want the company to go would be not this person's trajectory. So, and that person has found another opportunity, so they're exiting. So everything is copacetic. There's no hard feelings. They're not like telling someone we're booting you out. But the fact is that they wanted fresh leadership for the company. So we are conducting that search, and it's going very well. What I wanted to loop back to what I said earlier, that the CEO searches have not changed as much as others, is that our consultant has flown to a couple of different locations to meet people who are working remotely on the team to really thoroughly gather the insight from everyone. So just the due diligence that goes into a CEO search is much, much more involved. And, the worst thing that could happen for the investors is to get the wrong CEO. That you either, you have organ rejection and the organization goes, no, we hate this person or something like that. So getting a much deeper gut feel, as well as their actual input, and sort of reading the tea leaves on absorbing the right kind of person, in addition to the leadership skills and the business skills that will go into a situation. It's much more complex and just takes a little bit more time and thoroughness to get right.
Given that the stakes are pretty high,
yeah.
How long does a CEO search take compared to other types of searches?
That's a good question. Of course, let's just say it's taken 6 months for the investors of this particular company to really I mean, we met with them over 6 months ago that they knew they wanted to do a CEO search, but they needed some time to, talk with the incumbent and think about what they wanted. And so we had a long wait period before they actually pulled the trigger on a search. And
Okay.
I think that that's not unusual, that there's some thinking about this, but it's a big, big move. And so I think the board also takes its time and builds consensus around doing a CEO search.
Okay.
And then once the search is launched, I think, 3 months would feel very, very short. 6 months
Okay.
might be more into it. So, and some take over a year. I mean, it just depends on the situation. I was working for another company when they replaced their CEO, and that search, I was not doing that search, but I was doing others at the company and was aware that that CEO search took over a year because they were replacing a founder, and the founder was controlling interest in the company. And so it had to be someone the founder was okay with. And that took a very, very long time. So situationally, it can go quickly. If the board knows somebody and they're like, hey, let's put that person over here because we need something to happen in this company is in trouble, that can go really quickly. Right. But an actual formal search usually takes, a good 6 months.
Right. Not surprising, just given the amount of consensus you probably have to drive towards and the
Right.
stakes are there.
Right.
If I know there's a certain CEO gig that's likely to be coming up,
Mm-hmm.
and it's something I want to get considered for,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think are the steps that I should take to do that?
Well, one piece of advice is don't go around the search firm. However,
Okay.
you can leverage connections to get in touch with the search firm. You may not know who's doing the search. So I think one of the routes that's best is to come in as a referral from the board. There is no better golden standard. So if you, let's say, a company in your industry is doing a CEO search, you would like to get considered for that, then do your research, find out how you're connected to the board. And what you want to be, ideally, what you want to set up is where a board member would forward your name to the search firm and say, I'd like you to put this person into the pool for consideration. And that gets you into the process to be vetted by the search firm.
Okay. So you said this pretty clearly, and I just want to make sure that it's clear on the why. You said, don't go around the search firm. Why shouldn't you go around the search firm? What are the consequences there?
Well, the consequences are that you're going to really piss off the search firm. And that's not good because they can, if they choose to, undermine you. And I just think that, that's playing nice with the process is, at least on the surface, you need to do that. You can have your back channel to your buddy on the board, but go through the search firm. Otherwise, you make enemies with the people who are bringing forward your competition. So it just doesn't make sense. The best way to, look, the search firm wants to please the board. That's their customer. So they want to look good for them. They want to bring the right candidates forward. It'll be a retained search, which means there's no harm in, you have no advantage to going around them. So be part of the process, but you can be influential on the back with how interested you might be in the opportunity or whatever. So if you, I guess it's, if the board likes somebody, the search firm is like, yay, they like this person, it helps. Yeah.
But basically the incentives are not set up, the search firm's on retainer, they're getting paid anyway around it. They're probably going to have to do the assessments. And so just like the psychological damage that you could do to that relationship. And You may be looking for another gig at some point later
I was
on
just
too,
going
so
to
you probably need that
say, and that's
relationship
not going to
anyway.
look good in the file if you don't play nice. Yeah.
All right, good. All right, so another question around the boards. So the boards are the ones who are typically coming up with who they're going to want. How specific are the criteria that they're actually putting towards you, or is the search firm actually helping to develop the criteria for the board?
The board will have basically the criteria. The search firm might have some suggestions, but it comes from the board. I mean, the board wants to see, typically people who have done XYZ at a company because they want XYZ done with this company. So when the search firm brings people forward, they have to bring people who have done XYZ. And if there's a reason why they can't find that, then they have to, then the search firm works with the board to say, look, you want XYZ, but XYZ isn't out there. So how about XYY or something like, they're going to then work with, okay, what is it what are you trying to accomplish? This person has done this in a tangential industry, or this person has done this a little bit smaller company or bigger company, whatever. Then they start working around the edges of what the board really wants. But the goal is to bring, XYZ candidates to the board for consideration. Given that, I mean, the company performance of companies in your background is what counts. The board has always had in my experience, they typically have a bias for companies that they know. So if you have brands, known companies on your resume, of course, that's the ace, right? Okay, so this person's coming from this company that went public and had this great exit. Yeah, you're golden. That's what they want to see typically. Yeah, the company performance.
Okay. For the board members, do they typically have, favored recruiting firms that they're working with every single time, or are these new relationships to you guys as well?
Well, let's see. Typically, yes, there are favored firms, and that's why you want to build the relationships within those firms. There are the major firms who do CEO searches. What can vary is industry specific kinds of searches. So, for instance, Westwood and Wilshire has a phenomenal reputation within the life sciences, health tech kind of area. So we're very much top of the selection pile because of the industries that we know so deeply and know the players in those industries. So that is, we're a smaller firm. We're about 35 full-time employees. So we are a substantial boutique, but we're not Korn Ferry, right? So Spencer Stewart, those are Egon Zehnder. Those are some of the big names that do a lot of CEO searches for the larger companies typically and mid-sized companies. For the kind of growing companies or things that are very niche specific, then a boutique like ours will probably get the assignment. Yeah. So,
Gotcha.
And it comes to the investors and the board that know the firms. Yeah, they will recommend either a couple of firms, and they'll decide on one, or they'll have one that they typically use for a specific kind of industry. I think it's very industry driven. So you wouldn't give a biotech CEO search to a firm that doesn't have a background in biotech. You really are very industry driven on that. So we have this clean tech search because our consultant did prior searches for that investor and has that relationship. They understand how she works, her style. They have a lot of confidence in that. So it's almost always based on a prior relationship to get a CEO search.
Yeah. Okay. As always, Kris, the hour goes by very, very quickly when you're around. Okay. Yeah. And so I do think that there's a lot. We certainly don't have the problem solved on how to think about your next role as a CEO. So I think there will be certainly opportunities to have more discussion. Mm-hmm. We'll make sure that everyone knows how to reach out to you if they've got additional questions.
Great.
But really good discussion today. Enjoyed having you on. And is there any final thought that you want to leave the folks with who are on?
I think the CEO is the top slot, but remember you're part of a team, and build a great team, management team around you to help carry the burden.
All right. Great advice. Kris, good to see you. Look forward to talking to all the folks who attended real soon. Take care.
All right. Thank you.